One. Okay, thank you for coming today, and we welcome you at the Free Peoples of Russia House. Thank you for coming today, guys. And today we have a very interesting topic on the Russian diaspora helping Ukraine. And we have Dmitry Valuev. He is a Russian-American pro-democracy anti-war activist based in Washington, D.C. He serves as the president of Russian America for Democracy in Russia, a nonprofit organization uniting the Russian diaspora to help political prisoners, to advocate for democratic reforms, and to also support Ukraine. He is a co-chair and he co-leads Freedom Birds for Ukraine, which is, you know, hence the topic today. It's a volunteer initiative that delivers drones, medical gear, humanitarian supplies directly to Ukrainian defenders and civilians. With years of experience as a community organizer and speaker, he advocates for the power of grassroots activism to make a tangible impact in times of war. Also, we have Evgenia Sorokina. Thank you very much. An immigration attorney with over 20 years of experience, she has become a dedicated advocate for displaced Ukrainians seeking safety in the United States through her participation in, might I say, leadership in the Ukraine Immigration Task Force, and her extensive pro bono work. She helps families navigate complex processes such as asylum, visas, reunification, and often guiding them through their most difficult moment. She's known for her warmth and empathy. She combines legal expertise with compassion, offering both practical guidance and a sense of reassurance to those rebuilding their lives after displacement. I would like to ask you to welcome our guests and thank you for coming, and they will, yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much.
Раз, два, три.
Okay.
All right.
I think Dmitry, you should start.
Thank you. I want to thank our host, Evgeny. Nobody could have said better about Evgenia and myself. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for the interest and your attention to this topic. As Yevhen said, my name is Dmitry Valuev, Russian America for Democracy in Russia. We started with a relatively new organization, started in 2021 as a community organization of Russian Americans who stand for freedom and democracy. And our main purpose was to unite our communities, to bring people together, strengthen them, and maybe provide some help and support to new immigrants in the United States while affecting positive changes in our home country in Russia. However, in 2022, the full-scale invasion started, and we responded. We realized that we could not look back. We could not stay quiet. We need to speak up against the war. And we started the Freedom Birds for Ukraine project, which is right behind me. This is our website, freedombirds.help, that describes the main goal of the project is to raise money and to provide both humanitarian help for civilians as well as tangible help to Ukrainian military, including Russians in the armed forces of Ukraine. The project started in summer of 2022. We started a small fundraising campaign, and it succeeded. We raised money pretty quickly, and we realized that we have to unite Russians, not just as we did before, but through helping Ukrainians, through showing up and speaking out against the criminal war that Russian army unleashed in Ukraine. However, Freedom Burst for Ukraine is not the only avenue for us to help in Ukraine. There are two more projects that I wanted to talk about. One of them is the project in Russia to help Ukrainians who are imprisoned in Russia, who've been abducted on occupied territories. We have a project to support Russian political prisoners in Russian prisons. So we raise money and send that funds to who've been imprisoned. In the project is Ukrainian prisoners, civilians, both civilians and military. But I'll talk about that a little later, and I'll give you a few metrics on our Freedom Burst for Ukraine project. Since 2022, we raised over $400,000, which is not a lot. We know that many Ukrainian organizations raised much, much more. However, we are not a Ukrainian organization. We are Russians in the United States. However, in the meantime, comparing to other similar projects in other countries, we turned out to be probably one of the biggest grassroots Russian anti-war project that raises funds to support Ukraine, and one of the very few, unfortunately, Ukrainian military. We buy what's called non-lethal equipment. Profit organization, we cannot do that. However, we buy surveillance drones, or what they called sometimes consumer reconnaissance drones, something that we can buy on Amazon or any other online stores. Most of the drones that we buy are Mavic 3, and there are different models: Mavic 3 Pro or Mavic 3T with thermal cameras. We buy thermal vision equipment, different goggles or units that are mounted on helmets. We purchase vehicles, just regular vehicles, nothing special, and people at the front line use them on everyday basis to provide some sort of supply lines to the front lines or evacuate wounded soldiers. And it's, those simple vehicles become a critical piece of infrastructure at the front line. Sometimes it's not our focus, but we provide, especially in the beginning, we provided some personal protective gear. But again, it turned out that we've kind of focused on drones, thermal vision, vehicles. Sometimes, in some cases, it's kind of components for drones. And just recently, more requests started coming about anti-drone equipment, which is extremely critical and useful for the soldiers at the front line. Sometimes we hear that from our units that we help, that a drone can replace 10 men at the front line. With it, it's a simple piece of equipment, pretty inexpensive, but its ability equips units with additional vision, additional surveillance capabilities. So it's very difficult to underestimate the role of it, and we see that this current warfare, became the warfare of drones and technologies. So, however, we don't focus exclusively on drones and supporting military. Probably 20 or 25% of our funds go to civilians, Ukrainian civilians. And we help hospitals, we provide support to local communities. There was a case of a disaster caused by a dam that was blown up by the Russian forces that resulted into huge ecological disaster in Ukraine. And we help local communities with evacuation items, power banks, charging stations, and so on and so forth. During the winter time as well, power banks and charging stations are critical, still crucial. Our recent purchase was just a few weeks ago. We supplied a patient warming system for a local hospital in Mykolaiv region, which is pretty much the front line, very close to the front line. And it's a children's hospital. They're in desperate needs of supplies and equipment there. So it was kind of one of the successful fundraisers and deployment of equipment. There was an instance when we had to help a civilian family of a Ukrainian soldier. The family lived on the occupied territory and they were harassed by the local Russian troops that stationed there at that village.
You say harassed? Were they taken in and interrogated, tortured?
They threatened them, and at some point, so it reached a degree when they attacked the family physically, and the family asked us to evacuate them and help to get to safety. So we sent them money. They disappeared for 2 weeks, and it turned out that they had to go back to Russia, and then up to Belgorod, and then they crossed the front line to Kharkiv, and then that's how they got to safety. So we were very relieved to get the news that they are, they connected with the family.
Still how they got the money, so your organization.
Yes, yeah. So that was one of we don't specifically focus on that, but that's one of the things that we can help with. However, again, as I said, Freedom Burst for Ukraine is not the only. So Freedom Burst for Ukraine, by the way, is not accessible from Russia. So the website is blocked by Roskomnadzor, and it was one of the first things that the Russian authorities did. The organization in 2023 was recognized as undesirable, and earlier this year, me and my wife, Nadia, and colleague who is over there, have been added to the list of terrorists by the Russian government, most likely because of the Ukrainian help project. We don't still know the official charges. The formal charges have been filed, but we've not been able to discover them. So there's something going on there. It's still in.
Back there, they'd arrest you.
Oh, we're in the wanted list. Yes. The second avenue for us to help Ukrainians is to help those who've been abducted and arrested and imprisoned in Russia. Unfortunately, we can. It's terrible things are happening with them. Unfortunately, they overcome, go through torture, regular torture. Unfortunately, it's not just occasional instances, but regular torture. Yeah. As I said, probably the third help receivers are Ukrainians. We have probably about 45 to 50 individuals who we help on a regular basis. It's not a lot, but still it's not, it's more than We want to expand that project. We started it earlier this year. So we are looking forward to continue supporting Ukrainians in Russia.
What's the Navalny Foundation doing to support providing funding?
If you don't mind, let me give kind of a small introduction, and then we'll switch to Q&A. One of the important avenues for us to help and support Ukrainians is to participate in Ukrainian advocacy campaigns. Ukrainians have been doing a terrific job with organizing regular advocacy campaigns twice a year on a Capitol Hill. It was originally organized by RAZM, which is a big Ukrainian organization in New York. Now, American Coalition for Ukraine. It's a big organization that unites about 100 American organizations, and Russian America for Democracy in Russia, our nonprofit, is probably the only one Russian American organization that regularly participates in that campaign. It brings together 4, 5, sometimes 600. I think the last session in April brought together 600 delegates from 50 states. So we live here, represent Virginia. However, our delegates from New York and Florida participate in this campaign on a regular basis. And for sure, we're truly honored to be a part of this effort. Last year, in 2024, the campaign focused on supporting and advocating for a big $60 billion package that the Congress had to adopt, and it kind of stalled in the House. It was adopted by the Senate, stalled in the House. So it was right at in the middle of that conversation when the American Coalition for Ukraine had its summit. Luckily, right after we finished the campaign, House voted successfully for the package, and Ukraine received that money. Again, we understand it's not a lot. We want to do more. It is something that we're looking forward this year to be a part of. Later this month in October, there's going to be the second session of American Coalition for Ukraine on the Capitol Hill. We're truly looking forward to be a part of this tangible effort. My co-speaker today, Evgenia, has been a part of this initiative since the very beginning. And I met her, and our team met her at the summit. And we think that people with her expertise and with her experience is a great addition to the team. So we'll switch to questions in the end, but I want to.
Thank you, Dmitry. Thank you for your kind words, and I'm glad I met you there, because it's very important to be with like-minded people, especially they are on the same side of the problem here, because we are not Ukrainians. We have a misfortune to belong to the country aggressor in this horrible situation, and it's not easy to belong to the country aggressor in this horrible situation. At least it was not easy for me. Well, I'm Evgenia Sorokina. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer in Russia, and I'm a lawyer here. Unlike Dmitry, I'm not a political activist, a professional political activist, or even amateur political activist. I've been living a pretty apolitical life since I came here in the year 2000. Started to happen, which changed my life first such experience was January 6th of 2021, when this whole area inundated by a mass of intruders, and they burglarized one of the most beautiful buildings of my neighborhood. But that story is outside of the scope of my today's presentation. I'd rather focus on the second event and what followed. The second event was, of course, the full-scale invasion of Russian troops in Ukraine. It was about a year after January 1st. It was February 22nd of 2022. I was with my elder daughter in a Caribbean island, St. Lucia. And we were having a great time there, and I was also working on a deal. I'm a business attorney, by the way, in business immigration. Even within the immigration field, my focus is on professionals and entrepreneurs. I'm negotiating a deal with, for a Ukrainian product with a young lady, Oksana, from Ukrspetsexport. So I have a couple of Ukrainian businessmen who are working on my side in Ukraine. They're helping me, the buyer. And we go back and forth, small things, big things, whatever. And then February 22nd comes in. And I receive notices of invasion of the Russian troops in Ukraine from them, from my colleagues working there, and also from all the world media. And I got concerned. I didn't get scared, but I got concerned. For some reason, I thought that it's a minor incident, that they came, they put Ukrainian government under pressure, then the leaders will meet, and they will arrange things and they will go out. That was my wishful thinking, I guess. Of course, it didn't happen that way. And the next time, a few days after that invasion, I'm calling Oksana on WhatsApp or on Signal, whatever. And she says, and we speak Russian. She had no problem speaking Russian with me, and she's ethnically Russian as well. Sorry, I cannot talk right now. We are being bombed. And I said, what? Who is bombing you? And she says, Russian troops. And I kind of, my jaw falls and I have nothing to say. And she says again, I'm sorry, I cannot discuss it right now because we are in Irpin and we are being bombed. And I couldn't find, I blame myself later that I couldn't find anything more intelligent to say after that take care. And I don't remember how that day went by, but the next day, me and my Caribbean friends, we went shopping for groceries for a party, because that's what you do in the Caribbean, you party every day. And then in the middle of the grocery store, in the daytime, I broke into tears. I got the strongest hysterics in my life. I couldn't stop it. Nobody could stop it. My friends immediately fed me a bunch of over-the-counter substances, which you use when you want to come down, and they have a lot of those over-the-counter substances. And ultimately, I of course come down, but I lived one of the most horrible times in my life at that time, because this whole picture of destruction and death and pain and loss of loved ones, and it just, I saw it in my mind. And who is to blame for that? My people. And I felt even worse after that realization dawned upon me. And I swear to God that I would give everything I have in my life at that moment for this to stop, for this to end, for the Russian troops not bombing Oksana, who did nothing bad to them, for them to get the hell out of Ukraine and stop it. And it was a very, very powerful moment for me, very negatively powerful moment for me. I also realized at the time that I need to do something about it. I need to help Ukrainians, I need to stop Russians. I don't know what I can do, I don't know what I'm able to do, but I need to do something about it. I cannot leave, I cannot enjoy my life, I cannot enjoy Caribbean islands, Capitol Hill neighborhood, I can't, because while this continues. And then I went back to Washington. And in March, my Ukrainian colleagues called me and they asked me to help their families. Because I guess everybody who had a US visa in their passport, many of those people, they jumped into the planes and came here. And it would be normally a tourist visa. And that's what those guys did to their wives and children. They put them on the plane and send them out to friends and relatives who live in the United States. And then they sat here with friends 1 week, second week, and they saw that nothing is changing. The Russians are marching through Ukraine. Who knows what will happen? Will there be any Ukraine soon left? And those poor women, they started to think that they need to do something more permanent here. They cannot work with tourist visas. Some of them didn't know the language well. They have kids who needed to be in school. So their husbands called me and asked me to help them out on the immigration and legal side and just get them work authorizations, whatever. So I started to work with those here, and it was no programs were yet set up for Ukraine. The only thing I could do for them is to apply for asylum. I knew that they probably wouldn't get asylum, although they're afraid for their life. But I wouldn't get into the technicalities, but I can explain later why. So I started working with their asylum application. So I'll file for their asylum. They will wait for 5-6 years for their interview. In the meantime, they have a work authorization. Their kids will be eligible to attend schools. Fortunately, before I filed those asylum applications, the program of TPS came about. TPS is a temporary protected status, which this government, US government, sets up for countries in crisis. It can be a natural disaster, it can be civil unrest, it can be war like in Ukraine, so some sort of a bad thing happening to the entire nation, to the entire country. And the United States is willing to provide a protection for nationals of those countries who are in the US territory. Usually it's for 18 months, and then if the condition doesn't subside, it gets extended and extended and extended. People in TPS status are eligible for work authorization, kids can go to school, so they can live. They can live here. The TPS was established for Ukraine, I think on April 19, 2022, with the cutoff date, and that's important, because an eligibility for every TPS program is that the nationals of that country have to be in the US territory by a date certain. And for the Ukrainians, it was set up April 14. Fortunately, my clients were already here before April 14. I'm applying for the TPS, and they're just waiting for the papers to come. And then there was a couple of months when I was just managing their emotional state, because their husbands call, they're worried about their wives. I have nothing better to tell them that everything is done, they just need to wait. And the same thing I say to the wives, because they also call and asking me, so when will we see our approvals? When will we see later on, I realized it was important to them, to both of them, to both sides, to hear my voice, because it gave them comfort that somebody's taking care of their loved ones. Somebody's looking after them. Later on, I had further developments in one of those cases. The woman had to move out of her friend's house, and local volunteers took care of her and found her a space to live. And I talked to those local volunteers. Her husband wanted to know if those are good people who will be hosting her, and I vetted those people. Yes, they're good people. Anyway, so I was happy to do that, because my compassion to this Ukrainian families, they lived comfortably in Ukraine. They all are highly educated people. They have their businesses. They had the high standard of living there. And here you are. They are refugees. They live in somebody's house out of mercy. They don't know what will happen to them. They don't know. They count their money to buy food. It's humiliating. It's uncomfortable. It's untenable. It's horrible. I was very, very sympathetic to them. And again, this idea that who is doing it to them? My people are doing it to them. That was the worst part of it, I think, for me. Anyway, so that TPS comes, Summer comes, my clients get their work authorizations, TPSs, and then I realize the problems of those. U4U also, United for Ukraine, a humanitarian parole was instituted by the US government slightly later after TPS. Under U4U, it's a different program. Ukrainians could come here if they are sponsored by somebody from the United States, and the obligations of the sponsor are kind of amorphous and imprecise. It's what they agree between themselves, basically, but the sponsor had to be financially stable person. You have to have a sponsor. Sponsor initiates the process here. The government vets the sponsor, and then they also, to some extent, they vet the beneficiary as well, but they just wanted to make sure that it's a Ukrainian citizen. There is eligibility also. I think the domicile in Ukraine as of February 18, something like that, or February 11. That was important for you. And that was a problem for some Ukrainians whom I dealt with later. So sponsors apply for the beneficiaries. Beneficiaries shortly thereafter come. And they are eligible for some financial support, actually. TPS holders are not eligible for financial support. But U4U parolees are very small, I think TANF, no, something else. Some federal and some states would give them even more, state by state. In any case, those were two programs which were very helpful for the Ukrainians, either to come here as U4U or who were here already as tourists, as students, in any capacity, even those who crossed the border illegally. Once you prove your eligibility for TPS, your presence here as of April 14, boom, you have a work authorization, you have, you can live normally here. And I had clients for whom I did TPS, who came to the US much earlier, years ago, and they were illegal, they didn't know what to do with themselves, and then this TPS program comes and suddenly they can breathe. So yes, but those problems became apparent to me quite early. So what happens to people who come later after April 14? Or who are already in the US? While you are in the US, but you come after April 14, you cannot switch to U4U. You are not eligible to TPS, and you cannot switch to U4U, because for U4U, you have to be coming from abroad, not necessarily from Ukraine, but from outside. The design for those two programs was less than perfect because of those two incidents and two features. And then there would be a tremendously long period of waiting for an employment authorization document. You have to wait for 3-5 months. And then what do you eat in the meantime if you cannot work, if you cannot support yourself? That was also a very serious hardship, which I could observe. So the summer ends, I'm traveling with my kids in Europe. I cannot enjoy all those travels because my mind is on the Ukrainian front. I cannot take it out of my mind. I can't. I come back, and then I see an announcement of Ukraine Action Summit. I got it on the listserv of American Immigration Lawyers Association, where I belong. And when I saw that, I immediately decided that I need to be there. I saw what it is. It's an invitation to meet with the members of Congress and to deliver a Ukrainian agenda, how this country should be helping Ukraine. And I already know what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the flaws of these two programs, which I can observe, which affects people. So I signed up for this event. The first one was very hectic summit, very hectic summit. It was not that well organized yet. We were all communicating by WhatsApp chat group. People were coming from different states. They couldn't find their Airbnb. they didn't know how to get from one place to another. I ended up storing somebody's luggage in my house, giving them rides, delivering some publications from from place A to place B. So it was hectic. At the same time, it was very interesting. It was the first time I was participating in this kind of event. I ended up going to meetings with senators and representatives from other states because it was so disorganized. I'm a resident of DC, so technically speaking, I don't belong to any other delegation. But I ended up speaking to New York people, to Missouri people, and not all of them were friendly. Not all of them were kind of keen to the Ukrainian agenda. Although I had only my immigration agenda at hand, but I ended up advocating for other things that were relevant at that time in the fall of 2022. And also the important thing that happened at the first summit for me was that I met other immigration attorneys, and Ann Smith is a DC attorney of Ukrainian origin. She started this organization, Ukraine Immigration Task Force. She has worked in NGOs all her life. She had experience. She found some grants, so she started it. And I was one of the first one to join her. And we tried to improve the situation with the U4U and TPS. We met with, it was a chief counsel and staff member of Zoe Lovgren, the representative from 18th District of California. She was in charge of Immigration and Citizenship Subcommittee of the House Judiciary Committee. So we met with that wonderful guy. He is an immigration attorney himself. He speaks with us the same lingo. We had a wonderful conversation with him, but at the same time, it was so disheartening because he explained to us in many, many nuanced, refined reasons why our ideas will not fly. Because this machine, this bureaucratic machine, is insurmountable wall of bricks. After I heard that, no, you cannot move the date of TPS to a much later date because then other nations would ask for the same. Those were kind of the basic arguments. No, you cannot do a parole in place, which means having an ability to switch from something to U4U parolee in place. Like they have it for the close members of families of the military, by the way. They have parole in place since a long time ago. But they cannot do it for any country, any ethnical kind of group. The general argument is, that everybody would want it. No, they cannot do that. So anyway, I was kind of disappointed, and since then I decided to focus my effort on individual cases. How I can help individual people in their particular circumstances, in their particular situations, to overcome whatever hurdles they have in their particular cases to a better immigration status. And I talked to many, many people who would call me. All our information would be on the website of Ukraine Immigration Task Force. And people would call me from Ukraine, from other countries, wherever they ended up, and from US also. I spoke to so many people, telling him what to do and what not to do, evaluating the cases. Sometimes it was just coming or not coming. Sometimes they were sophisticated people, business people who had their ideas, what they want to pursue here in the US. And we had more extended conversation about them, about their education, about their ability. So I've been doing it continuously, and I'm still doing it. Apologize. Yes, and I enjoy working with the Ukrainian clients. I really enjoy working with them. They are well-educated, very respectful, very hardworking people. I currently have several cases. I have a couple of Ukrainian truck drivers on TPS. I have an entrepreneur who is in Switzerland, an IT entrepreneur who has had his IT business in the US and a couple of companies in European countries, and he wants to develop his IT business now, and he needs to bring in workforce from Ukraine. So that is a very interesting project. It's a pleasure to talk to this guy. Very, very, very polite, civilized, just intelligent. A pleasure. I have a Ukrainian graphic designer, a young lady for whom I'm doing an immigrant visa based on the employer's petition. A perm is a long-time project. If somebody is, familiar, that it's from 2 to 3 years. I think we are on year 2. I'm waiting for the perm approval, so I could proceed with her I-140 and ultimately the green card. I have 2 financiers who are on TPS, but for whom I will be doing E2, non-immigrant investor visa. Now I'm working on a money transmitter license for them. They work in Florida. They want to open a chain of currency exchanges, including cryptocurrency exchanges. So yeah, they are wonderful people as well. Very, very, very professional, very intelligent. They are a couple, both of them are in the same industry. And I have a Russian business owner who has been here for a long time, who has a successful business in New Jersey, making custom design curtains and blinds. And she has a couple of Ukrainian refugees working for her, and they are so good that she wants to sponsor them for green cards. And I'm happy to do that for her. So, yes. I guess I found what I can do for Ukrainians. I still not completely satisfied for what I'm doing against Putinists, but I'm doing something. Maybe the circumstances will suggest to me what else I can do. And well, thank you very much, and I'm open to your questions.
Questions?
My name is Tatiana. I'm here in personal capacity. How is your vantage point as Russian opposition or somebody from Russia helps in communicating messages to the congressmen, to senators, help to forward the Ukrainian agenda? Because you're a little bit coming from a different side, like from a different position. So how does it help your partners from American Coalition for Ukraine and other organizations?
I think Dmitry has more to say about it. Well, we both could answer that question, but I don't agree with you that I'm coming from a different position, by the way. I don't know what makes you think so, but I'm not. Oh. Can you say first?
I can take it first, and then you can add something. I agree with Tatiana. I think we are constantly at the congressional summits coming from the position, and we don't hide that. And we specifically, during our meetings with staff or with members of Congress, we specifically highlight that we are Russian Americans who support Ukraine. As a matter of fact, in 2023, there was an interesting meeting with late congressman from Virginia District 11. That's our district, with Jerry Connolly, who passed way recently, unfortunately. And we met with his staff, and the meeting went well with Matthew. Meeting went well, and we were wrapping up and moving towards the front door, and I saw the congressman walking in. He was not available. He was walking in, so I stopped him because I recognized his face, and I said, Congressman Connolly, can you please, stay with us and talk to us a little bit? And he said, who are you? I have 5 minutes. And I said, we're I'm part of a coalition for Ukraine, and this is a summit to advocate for Ukraine. And he said, who's in your group? And I said, I am, me and we had a couple of more Russians. we're Russian Americans who support Ukraine, and there are some Ukrainians on our group. And he looked at me and said, well, are there any Russians who support Ukraine? And I said, yeah, it's not just me. It's, there are other groups, there are other teams from other states. And we ended up having a conversation for, I think, 15 or 20 minutes. And it went very well. He was very supportive. He told a lot about what he was doing because he was a member of a NATO committee, and he traveled to Ukraine many times. And to the question, our position, because Ukrainians are asking the Congress from Ukraine, so they represent Ukraine, and they're asking from the position of being Ukrainians and sympathizing with their, countrymen and relatives and friends. We do work with Ukrainians. We do have friends now in Ukraine, but we are from the side of, we are citizens of the aggressor, unfortunately. However, we do not support that aggression. Our focus is, and our approach is that we represent Russians who want that war to stop, and the asks that typically on the agenda of any committee, of any summit, of any congressional campaign, we add our voice to the types of asks, whether it's sanctions or it's additional help that needs to be dedicated to Ukraine, or it's a piece of legislation that has to be adopted. We are saying that as Russians, we stand for freezing Russian assets, for example, or applying additional sanctions on Russian military sector, and so on and so forth. So we're not against that. We're not those Russians who would say that, we don't want our country to be under additional sanctions. No, we do want additional sanctions to be applied for that war to be stopped. So I think, and we talked to our fellow summit participants about that, and sometimes we highlight specific asks and specific topics just for us to speak first, especially again when it comes to Russian assets, when it comes to additional sanctions, when it comes to Wagner, because Wagner topic was one of the, when Wagner was active, was one of the asks to designate Wagner as a terrorist organization. We talked a lot about that and about how they operate in Russia, how they recruit, and the war crimes they committed, not only in Ukraine, but in other countries. So it can be, one of the approaches of any summit is to make a speech personal, and we can make that personal to talk about, to focus on specific items related to specific items in the agenda, with regards to Russia. Maybe you can.
I totally agree with Dmitry. From myself, I can only say that people were kind of surprised that I am participating in such an event on the Ukrainian side, because I'm Russian, and not only Russian, I'm a Muscovite, for God's sake. So some people liked it, others, especially the Ukrainian co-participants, I could feel a little bit of a chill, directed towards me, but I didn't care. That wouldn't and will not stop me from what I'm doing, because I'm doing it for a specific reason. If it were not Ukraine, if it were Turkey under attack, for example, or some other nation, I would do the same thing for Turkey or for that other nation. And by the way, in that Ukrainian summit, there were several Americans who had no connection to Ukraine at all, no family connection, they just are doing it because they feel like doing it. Thank you.
One second, can I ask, could you elaborate a little bit on that? So, as a Russians and Russian organizations, what kind of skepticism, barriers you faced from Ukrainians that you worked with, from Ukrainian organizations that you worked with, that you may be delivering aid and there was some resentment or whatever? right? Or Ukrainian people that you work with, maybe you face distrust from them. So could you maybe talk about this a little bit?
Me first.
Well, I never see any distrust from my Ukrainian clients. I never see and saw any distrust from Ukrainian businessmen I worked with when I was working with the deal that never happened, unfortunately. Sometimes I see this kind of dislike and hatred from people from Ukrainians whom I meet on those action summits who are people whom I don't know. And I get it. I understand it. I understand that when a nation lives through such a tremendous, painful experience at the expense of another nation, all the members of that other nation, of the nation aggressor, are felt to be guilty of it. To some people, I get it. It doesn't deter me from doing what I'm doing, and I'm okay with that, I guess. It's not pleasant, but it's okay. There are other Ukrainians who thank me for what I'm doing, and they do it after I learn that I'm Russian. I don't like that either. I feel like there is nothing to thank here. Like thanking me for being normal? No, I don't deserve it. Yeah.
I think there are two different reactions that we get when we work with soldiers at the front line in Ukraine. They typically tell us that we don't care much about where the help comes from or who that help comes from. As long as it comes, as long as there is help, Russian, with Russian passport, without Russian passport, does not really matter. The main objectives of soldiers at the front line is to survive and to win. And whatever helps them to survive and to win, they will take it. They will accept it. Even if it's a Russian tank or Russian, I don't know, machine gun, they will not say, "Oh, we will not touch it because it's Russian." They will take it, shoot it, and fight back. So if help comes from Russians, they say, "Well, we helped Azov, we helped Volky Da Vinci, we helped, different brigades and battalions that have, kind of well known in Ukraine." They didn't mind. They said, "Well, as long as you help, we'll take it." They might not advertise that, but that's a different story. In terms of the relationship with fellow summit, congressional summit participants, pretty much every summit we have long talks with Ukrainians, typically with some new Ukrainians who we haven't talked before, about who we are, what we're doing there, what our motivations, where we're coming from, what our objectives, and so on and so forth. And we have to explain ourselves on and on again, because yes, there are some questions about our motivation and our long-term objective, because Ukrainians want to see where it's going to. It's because for Ukrainians, the summit is just a part of the fight, just a part of the campaign, part of the resistance. And they want to see, as I understand, they want to see that long-term commitment from us as well. And when they see that, when they understand that it's not just a bunch of kind of random guys who just showed up and just take pictures and make nice reports and then they disappear. When we tell them that this is not what not the only what we do. We do many other things to help Ukraine. We tell them about Freedom Burst for Ukraine. We tell them about other things. We participated in the project to search for abducted Ukrainian children at some point. And when people hear that, they realize that we are not just kind of talking heads. There's something tangible behind of what we say and what we do. And I think that when that happens, that kind of shift happens, they realize that we are pretty much in the same fight. together. And I think that's the main thing. When they realize that we're fighting the same fight, we're fighting the same enemy, you know, we have the same emotions about the enemy, we have the same feelings, and we have the same desire to defeat that enemy. I think that kind of when they realize that, when we are able to deliver that message, you know, that changes things.
We have two questions. So,
Thank you very much. I learned a lot by listening here. I think you're doing tremendous work, and you should be helped. Trying to be very brief. My name is Frank Alson. I'm a former Washington representative of Freedom House. I'm Cuban American. I write articles and so on. One thing, the Wall Street Journal today has a column saying that there are $300 billion of Russian assets in the West. According to the journal, it says they could be confiscated and they should be handed over to the Ukrainian government. Okay, that's what the journal says. Is there a Ukrainian caucus in the Congress? Does anybody know if any legislation is currently in either the House or the Senate? Foreign Relations Committees? That's one thing. And just let me finish by saying this. One important issue for me and many other human rights activists is the plight of the Ukrainian children that have been kidnapped. I think many of us are missing a great opportunity. When Mrs. Trump went public and asked for the children's release, we ought to have a campaign everywhere, all the time, demanding that those children be released immediately. And keep the pressure on, and it will get done. If Mr. Trump says you do that, they will do it. Thank you.
Thank you for, first of all, thank you for your work that you've done, and thank you for the questions. The topic of frozen assets is one of the most permanent topics of Ukrainian Action Summit. There have been discussions, there have been legislations. It hasn't moved forward yet. I can tell you that the majority of the frozen assets are not in the United States. There is some in the United States. There's some money. The majority is in Europe. I know that there have been serious talks between Americans and Europeans about what to do with those assets. There have been some serious talks about seizure of those assets. As of now, some assets are used to provide some help to Ukraine using the percentage that interest rate, the interest that the assets generate. It's not a lot. It's within hundreds of millions. There's much more frozen there. As we understand, the biggest concern is that if those assets will be seized, it will be a great disturbance in financial markets. Ukrainians are hesitant. The Ukrainians are committed. Europeans are hesitant to seize them. I think there is an appetite on the American side. We've heard President Trump talking about that. Whether or not it will be done or not, we don't know yet. Again, I think we support that. As Russian Americans, we do support that approach. We think that it's fair to compensate Ukraine for the destruction that Russia caused. I don't think it will be enough. I don't think it, because the scale of destruction is tremendous, unfortunately. But certainly something has to be done with that regard. And we're looking forward to the upcoming summit in October, and we'll see whether or not it will make the one of the items on the agenda this time. Certainly, we'll talk about that. Maybe, Evgenia, you would.
No, I can only second what you've just said. The spring summit, I don't remember the exact name and the number of that bill. That was exactly the bill dedicated to usage of the frozen assets, Russian assets, for weaponry for Ukraine. Or
Is that in committee or is that on its way or where is it?
it was introduced. The last time we were walking around talking about it, that it should go, it should be supported, it should be endorsed. But the last, I don't know, I didn't check. We don't hear about it, but yeah.
I think the 300 billion is the European assets. It's not the assets in the United States. So it is really up to the European.
I'm sorry, there's some assets in the United States and there's some assets in Europe. And we don't have, I'm sorry, let me finish. We don't have to take them all. The U.S. could do what the U.S. can do. The Poles, the Germans, the others could do their own thing. There's a lot of work to do. If we cannot do everything, if we say, oh, we cannot do everything, well, that's what we are now.
You are absolutely correct. And at the last summit, we had a wonderful presentation by a American Ukrainian lawyer who was talking about precedents, United States precedents, of using seized assets by the United States, seized assets of other nations.
I think it was Iraq, one of the examples.
Yes.
And it was done before.
There are precedents. I think there is no political will for that, unfortunately, in this country. And Europeans are pointing fingers to the US. When everybody starts doing it, and Japan, then we will do that as well. That was the last position of somebody in Brussels. Yeah.
Again, our job in all this is to, sometimes I give that analogy of, political relationships as being a big giant iron ball, and different people push it, from different sides and try to kind of steer it to, certain direction. So our job is to push it to the right side and, hope that, wherever we're pushing towards, that will be, everybody else will be pushing towards that, and we'll overcome the other side. So our job is be that voice, not the only one, but at least something, And as of Russian Americans, actually, we've been trying to recruit more voices and be more loud, because we think that there are more Russian Americans in the United States than Ukrainian Americans. Sure, and so we have to support Ukraine. We have to be much louder and have that focus that we want to achieve. The amount of
There's the legislation. So the REPA Act. So the REPA Act was one of the priorities for the summit, and was actually very successful because it was passed by the Congress and signed into law in October 2025 by Biden. So the legislation is there. It hasn't been used yet. So the alternative plan is what you just said, is to fund Ukraine through the generating the interest rate, or there are some other
in some countries has been done. Has
financial
been doing that.
mechanisms. Yes, but United States can do it as well.
Thank you. That's
What about Navalny and his opposition? Have they been aligned with Ukraine, or what's the status of that at this point? they're supposed to be in opposition to Putin, and I would think that they would want to support the efforts of your organization and others to help Ukraine.
I'll try to be as much diplomatic as possible.
Okay.
I think we hear that from the Congress on a regular basis, that the fate of, the topics of Russian in the United States, Russian opposition, depends on our relationship with Ukraine. And I think that the Russian opposition in general failed that relationship. I think we failed. Despite of our little efforts, with Freedom Burst for Ukraine, with supporting Ukrainian advocacy, our voices, we're still a grassroots initiative. We don't have that huge outreach as our leaders. And I'll tell you one thing. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion in 2022, Ukraine has been visited by many political leaders from all across the globe. Europeans, Americans have been going to Ukraine, visiting Ukraine on a regular basis, with official visits, with public diplomacy visits, celebrities, you name it. Unfortunately, none of the prominent Russian opposition leaders have made a public visit with a public diplomacy gesture to Ukraine, and I think it's been a huge failure on our end. And I personally, and as an organization, we would have liked to see that happening.
What's the reason?
I would not speculate here, but there might be different explanations. So with Navalny and the Navalny team now, they've been doing mostly information work, information campaigns, investigations, campaigns to promote specific certain agenda, and they've been very successful. They have a huge visibility on YouTube and other things. Sanctions is something that they've been doing successfully, right. Personal sanctions. They came up with a list of 6,000 individuals responsible for the war and current aggression. I think it's good, but it's not enough. There could have been more efforts, and could have been more the efforts might have been broader than what we have, what we see. Again, it doesn't mean that we have to sit and just have a grief about that. We can we do our own share at the rate, at the scale that we are capable of. We think that we have to do more. We're trying to do more. We're trying to recruit more help. We're trying to strengthen our communities and be kind of a full-scale ally for Ukrainians and Ukrainians in the United States. And I think the examples of Evgenia is one of those that was what drives us now, that kind of individual responsibility, understanding that we have to do something to stop it. We have to do something to respond to this. And I admire what Evgenia does and many others in other parts of the world, not just in the United States and Europe. And it's not enough. But this people like Evgenia, like our volunteers, have to be an example and have to have enough support to do what we do, to continue doing, and to understand that we're not alone.
Has the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation been effective?
I know that they've been doing a tremendous work, yes. One of the oldest Ukrainian organizations in the United States. I know that they have their own task force groups on certain projects, on certain issues. Nadia McConnell,
Right.
her husband, they've been terrific. And as a matter of fact, I think what we see now, UKK, UCCA, the old Ukrainian diaspora, They're now back with their own advocacy campaigns. So now we have 4 campaigns, 2 of them organized by UKK, 2 organized by Ukraine Coalition for Ukraine, which I think it's, you know, it's great. It's kind of double down the effect.
I have a question to Dmitry. What is the current status of our interactions with Ukrainian diaspora? How deeply we are involved in such interactions? Of course, in Facebook, I see joint pictures when Russians, anti-war Russians and Ukrainians stay together in meetings. And I myself had several occasions to stay all together in anti-war meetings, in front of Russian embassy, etc. Anyway, how deep are these interactions? Because I understand that naturally all Russians, even we are anti-war, we have a feeling of guilt for Ukrainians being Russian citizens. At the same time, I would also expect that naturally they would have kind of rejection of us. It's just psychology. Anyway, if you can clarify this matter, would be interesting.
Thank you for the question. By the way, I just wanted to let everybody know, if you don't know, you've been a great supporter of Ukraine, have participated with your spouse, Lena, somewhere there. Yes, yeah, attended many rallies in support of Ukraine. So again, one of the examples of how kind of, you know, big things come out of small elements, small items. With regards to the relationships, we've here in Washington, D.C., supported Ukrainians since the annexation of Crimea, since 2014. In many other places where our organization, Russian America for Democracy in Russia, exists, in New York, Florida, in California, Chicago area, our local communities as well developed their own relationships with local Ukrainian communities. And one of the examples of that in Sacramento, where there is a big Russian community as well as a big Ukrainian community, every 24th of each month, Russians and Ukrainians come together to the capital of California, which is Sacramento is the capital of California, and hold rallies in support of Ukraine, candlelight vigils, and so on, every month since the 2022, regardless of the weather, every month, every 24th of each month. I think the main thing that Ukrainians expect from us, and again, I don't want to speak for Ukrainians, but still, we've interacted with Ukrainians for, you know, many years now. I think the main things I kind of told them already is to help Ukrainians survive and help Ukrainians win. As long as they see that we do that, that we participate, the relationship get better. As long as they see that there is just, you know, mouthpiece, you know, just talks, the overall hesitancy, as you said, the overall suspicious about our motives remains. Right now we have constant relationship with volunteers and organizations in Ukraine. Благодійна Association in Mykolaiv, it's a charitable organization in Mykolaiv, is one of the registered charity organizations in Ukraine that we constantly work with. They have a permanent office in Mykolaiv. They are in touch with local troops, with local soldiers. They have a warehouse. They have They get requests from local, hospital, for example. We built great relationship with them, and I think it's beneficial for both us and them because we can supply help knowing that it will be delivered to whoever is supposed to, and they know that they have some allies and supporters they can rely on, and they can tell us that, well, we have the 23rd Brigade, their drones were destroyed. Can you please, do something? Do you have any resources available to quickly buy, let's say, 5 drones for them? And if we have that ability, we do that. So to have that type of relationships, and we have, Mila Ivanovna Falko is the director of that organization. I work, and talk to her on a weekly basis. And she told me recently how she put on her vest, the bulletproof vest, and take a car and delivered some food to the front line because people were at the front line were kind of cut out of the supply, and they didn't have that ability. There were kind of a bunch of soldiers there, and she was tracked down by a drone, enemy drone. And she was in communication with the troops, and they kind of guided her to the safety. So she hid in kind of a damaged building, in a damaged house, actually. So those horrible stories, and when we hear them, she sometimes sends us some videos and pictures of the soldiers who they help, who are wounded and delivered to hospital, evacuated. And I understand that that's kind of the reality where people live in. It's a horrible reality. It's terribly horrible. I mean, it's unbearable, really, sometimes. But we kind of talk the same language because they rely on the help that we can provide. Not only us, because there are other people in Europe, in the United States who help that charitable organization and help those troops and hospitals. But that's how it works. It's when we build that, when we help, when we provide that help, and they rely on that help, that's where that relationships is coming from, not from just talks and thoughts and prayers. So I think that should be the nature of kind of healing those wounds. Because of course, Ukrainians are angry at Russians. Of course, we allowed that to happen. We didn't stop that monster in time. Then, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do that now. We should stop it now. So that's our job.
No, I totally support Dmitry. He expressed it very, very well. That's our job.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for participating. And yeah, thank you for being in this house. If you have any questions, come to me, come to Dmitry, come to Evgenia. Thank you. Thank you.